And now that we are recording, I would just like to make a couple notes. So we are going to go through this presentation, and we will open it up at about 9:10 a.m. to audience participant or audience Q&A through the chat box. So we will be keeping everyone on mute the entire time, including during Q&A. If you have questions, put them into the chat box, and we will be moderating that, like I said, at about 9:10 a.m. This is recording this. We are recording this. It will go on our YouTube channel, and then we'll send it out with any resources as well after the webinar. So feel free to share the link to our YouTube channel once we've got that sent out. And I am actually going to go ahead and turn the time over to Pitt Gruey, who is our office's director as well as today's moderator. He will introduce our panelists and then take it away.
Great, thank you, India. Thank you, everybody, for being here and taking the time this morning. This is a very interesting topic. I think we are all a little Zoom fatigued and virtual meeting fatigued, and especially listening to things about how we can improve, or how to quickly pivot and do all these, deal with all the issues in the world today, and economic downturns and civil unrest and anything like that. And so we thought we would bring together a great panel of folks from around the state to share their successes from this summer and kind of, shine a bright light and say, look, these are the good things that are coming from the pandemic. These are good things that have come from these organizations, and really hear some great success stories. So I'm excited to hear about this, and we have a great panel today. Our first panelist is Lee Vaughn. He's the director of camping for YMCA of Northern Utah. Lee originally is from Auckland, New Zealand, and has been in the camp industry with the YMCA for 14 years, working in operations in New Zealand, Australia, the US, China, and Vietnam. He completed a diploma in outdoor leadership at Auckland University of Technology in 2006 and quickly moved into the industry through the YMCA. He really appreciates diversity in outdoor programming and is passionate about using the outdoors as a tool for development for staff and campers alike. Our next panelist is Jesus Castano, and he's the Camp Roger director. So if any of you have been up to Camp Roger, you'll know it's a pretty amazing area and a pretty amazing camp. Jesus is originally from Bogota, Colombia, and he's worked for the YMCA in Utah seasonally for 5 summers and just completed his first year round full-time position as the director of Camp Roger. He completed a bachelor's degree in education and modern foreign languages, Spanish, English, and French at the National Pedagogic University in Bogota. And he's very passionate about youth development and the impact that the outdoors and safe, caring environments have in children and young adults. So welcome, Jesus. Next, we have Kate, and she's the interim executive director of the Canyonlands Field Institute. And Kate grew up around the DC metro area in Maryland, and later earned a BS in rehabilitation psychology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She believes in connections with nature are important for mind, body, and spirit, and has dedicated the last 11 years to creating opportunities for people of all demographics to grow through adventures in the outdoors. So after college, she worked in a high-low ropes course, wilderness therapy, and experiential outdoor education. And then Kate joined the Canyonlands Field Institute down in Moab in 2010 as a program intern, and spent the last decade working her way up, embracing the desk life, and became an interim executive director this summer. Ryan Neely from Camp Chef, he's the marketing manager at Camp Chef. And Ryan is a Utah native who has called Cache Valley home for the majority of his life. With aspirations to work in the outdoor industry, Ryan started at Camp Chef as an intern while attending Utah State University. And since graduating in 2013, he has led various marketing roles within the company as the brand grew from a smaller family-owned operation to a nationally recognized industry-leading maker of outdoor cooking products. Ryan's current role is marketing manager, where he oversees various marketing efforts for the company. And his job is ingrained into his lifestyle, which includes a young family and passion for mountain biking, trail running, hunting, and of course, cooking. And then our last panelist is Jake. Jake Jones, he's the rep for Cataract, Oars, and business development manager for Advanced Composites, Inc. He was raised in Utah, and Jake is an avid outdoorsman, enjoying cycling, rock climbing, and many other outdoor activities. He earned his bachelor's degree from Utah State University and went to work for Advanced Composites. They manufacture outdoor products here in Salt Lake City. In his more than 16 years with ACI, Jake has become an integral part of operations, marketing, and growth. And most recently, he was spearheading a shift to direct sales for ACI and for their outdoor product lines. So his creative and ingenuity have helped ACI navigate the rough terrain of the 2020 pandemic and set the company in a position for future growth and opportunities. Jake's passion for the outdoors connects him with ACI's customer base and drives the company to new heights. So as you can see, we have a power-packed panel today, and we're excited to hear from all of them, not just industry and business successes, but also operational successes in kids programs and nonprofit operation and everything else. So, a lot to learn here today. Just a reminder, right, if you aren't able to stay with us the whole time, this has been recorded on YouTube and you can go back and review it, or if you just want to review it and share it with your organizations or friends or co-workers, please, after this is done, feel free to share it around, and this information can help anybody. So with that, let's get started. We're going to start with everybody taking in a couple minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, to kind of give a brief explanation of their organization and kind of what they did this summer and why they're here to explain that. So let's start with Lee, if you want to give us a couple minutes and talk about your successes this summer.
Rookie era. Morning, everyone. Yeah, so my name's Lee Vaughan. So I'm the director of camping for the YMCA of Northern Utah, like Pitt said. So I oversee YMCA Camp Roger, YMCA Camp Mill Hollow, and a day camp operation up in Park City. And I guess I reached out to Pitt and India because we got to the end of our summer and kind of it felt like we blinked and all of a sudden summer was behind us and it was a huge success. Yeah, so I guess like getting into the thick of it, we had just under 1,100 registrations over the course of the summer over those 3 different operations. And we didn't record a COVID case. So our day camp averaged about 40 kids. Jesus's operation averaged 100 kids for 7 weeks with 30 staff, and Mill Hollow averaged between 10 and 20 kids over the course of summer with 10 to 15 staff. Yeah, surreal experience. Something that I'm never ever gonna forget. And I guess, to be blatantly honest, we didn't want to run this summer. Me and my leadership team, we kind of worried that we were going to be part of the problem. But our organization got the PPP loan, and there were a bunch of other grants out there that really helped us. And the decision made by our board, our CEO, and then ultimately we got on board, gave us the ability to run. So yeah, I guess a lot of hard work and a lot of due diligence went in from top to bottom. One of the big successes was because camps across the country were closing down, we got some of the best staff that we've ever had, and they just absolutely rocked it. But it wasn't easy. There was always this cloud of COVID hanging over us. When's it going to come? When's it going to shut us down? When are we going to, worry about this? And so when we got to the last couple of weeks, we're like, we're going to do this? This is going to happen? And with hindsight now we really realized that not only the kids needed this break, we needed this break. We needed to pour our heart and soul into this. So yeah, there's a lot of details and I'll be happy to answer questions, but that's a quick brief into who I am and what we've done.
Thanks, Lee. Let's jump to Jesus and stay with the YMCA for a second and go ahead, Jesus. You got a couple minutes.
Awesome. Thank you, Pitt. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jesus. I was the camp director for Camp Roger this summer. As Lee mentioned, at Camp Ready, we ran a program for 7 weeks, average 100 kids per week and 30 staff that came from all across the country. Amazing bunch of individuals, very passionate about the camp industry and very passionate about providing kids with great, wholesome experiences in the outdoors. Definitely dealing with the whole COVID scenario. You're still up in the mountains, isolating yourself. We saw a great opportunity to provide kids and staff with a safe environment. Like, you go that you into mountains, just like it's just your guys' backyard here in Salt Lake City. And so taking people over there to help them cope with everything that's been happening for several months. Kids have not been able to see their friends, go to school, live their normal lives. And being able to bring them up there and be like, camp is going to be different this summer, but we're going to make it work. We're going to work together to help you guys have an awesome week. I think that was the most rewarding thing that we could have done this summer. Of course, there was the imminent risk that something was going to happen, that we're going to get shut down. But we worked through it. Amazing bunch of staff and a very cohesive, very well thought program that we put together in a very short period of time. So I do feel proud for what we did. It was a risk. We took it and it paid off for sure. Seeing those families, seeing the kids just being extremely grateful, helping them cope with everything that was happening, it was definitely worth it. And not only that, but also like with the staff when they came over, I was not expecting that to happen, but that they will be going to their summer camps in other states for 10, 12, 8, 7 years, however many years. And now they had to go to a different summer camp, different location, different group of kids. That was not easy dealing with that, with young adults and young individuals. So we were essentially like helping everybody and helping each other cope with everything that was happening around. As Lee mentioned, now that we think back through it, it was a great experience. Definitely a summer to remember. And as myself being so young in this industry, like, I feel like that's going to add up to my CV and into my experience as a camp professional, all in all.
Thanks, Jesus, and congratulations again to Lee and Jesus for their successful operation. We'll dive into that here in a minute and kind of hear about some of their strategies and what went well and what they learned. But next, let's give Kate a second to introduce herself more and talk about what the Canyons Field Institute did this summer.
Thanks, Pitt. So Canyonlands Field Institute is a nonprofit organization based in Moab, Utah. We do outdoor education programs to cultivate connections with the landscape and renew the human spirit. And I would say this summer, our operating season is March through October. So COVID hit at a pretty inopportune time. It's when we were, as a lot of outdoor industry people experienced. And our main clientele is schools for the bulk of the year, spring and fall, but we do run summer camps. So our organization was pretty successful getting grants to help us through. We had PPP funding, EIDL loans, and then later the Shop in Utah grant. So just to name a few. But during the summer, we usually run overnight programs for middle school age kids on land and rivers around Southeast Utah. So the Colorado River Daily, the La Salle Mountains, and on BLM lands around Moab. We decided to cancel our overnight programs and do only day programming. And we got a grant from the Office of Child Care to provide full day Monday through Friday programs. With that, we switched up how, the length and the type of program. We also changed our age range. Instead of middle school, we focused on younger kids whose families needed that support. So it was, age 6 through 12. And I would say it was a huge success. It was very challenging, similar to what Lee and Jesus said. We questioned whether to run the programs at all. It was a large effort in learning and adjusting how to operate, as far as how many people could you fit in a van safely to drive around. do you have enough guides on hand if one of them registers a temperature in the morning when you're taking everyone's temperature? So lots of logistics challenges, but ultimately, what it did for our organization is we've been wanting to tap into a younger population and support families in that way over the summer. And we were always almost too busy with our normal programs to be able to try that. So COVID did allow us to really refocus and try out some things we hadn't done before. And families were bringing us cakes as thank yous because they got a break. Kids were just all over the place with lots of energy. They really needed to get out. And where there was some resistance with wearing masks and always having to wash hands and things like that, everyone felt better from the experience. And we had kids who caught their first fish at a mountain lake and who were stoked about it and wanted to tell their parents. We had the mayor of Moab thanking us in the grocery store for providing a service to her family. So all those challenges, I think, really paid off for us to put in the time to adjust how we operate and understand what the community needs, and get kids connected with nature and continue to get out in some fresh air and be active. So, yeah.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice work again as well to you this summer. We're now going to jump a little bit to the industry side of things. We're going to go to Ryan from Camp Chef. Different challenges as opposed to getting kids outside, but you have to keep operating a business during these times, and also a lot of times seeing a spike in business for some of these industries. So Ryan, you want to give us a little rundown on how your summer went?
Yeah. Good morning, Pitt, and everybody else who's joined. For sure, Camp Chef we're a maker of outdoor cooking equipment up here in Cache Valley. We've been in business for this is our 30th year of business, and it's been a different year for sure. Obviously, everybody on this phone call has experienced things we've never experienced before, and I think from Lee and Jesus and Kate, we're a different dynamic, but obviously this pandemic has played a role in all of our ventures or businesses. Camp Chef has been quite busy over the summer, and it's thrown some very interesting challenges our way that we just had to work through and had to figure out for the entire Camp Chef team. Overall, as soon as it hit, everybody was very uncertain of what was going to happen, and actually we're still kind of uncertain for where things are going to go. But the lockdown and the closure really threw a big spike in outdoor recreation. People couldn't go to their kids' soccer games or NBA games, where all these gatherings were then cut off. So people obviously resorted to social distancing, which meant getting outside. And for Camp Chef, that means cooking when you're out camping, things like that. That includes cooking. The other big trend that we noticed and had to figure out and work through is people were on lockdown, restaurants were closed. They had to cook food. They obviously had to grill. And so for a lot of people, this gave them a great opportunity to pick up a new hobby of grilling and cooking and barbecue while they were in quarantine. And so they, big trends with people buying new grills and doing that. And I think, there were stimulus checks and other things that were sent out that obviously played a role in all of this. And I think everybody in the outdoor community played a role in helping people get outside, but doing so safely, and how to still social distance. There were times when I went running on the trail and, I'd bump into more people than I normally would. So it's definitely been an interesting summer for Camp Chef. But we did our best to make lemonade out of the lemons that were thrown at us. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. Thanks, Pitt.
Thanks, Ryan. And lastly, Jake, I want to introduce kind of the direction and the pivot that the ACI has had this year, and then from that, why don't you lead in to talk about, you know, the Shop in Utah grant or any other grants you received and how that made a difference for your business?
Sure. Thanks, Pitt. So Advanced Composites, we're a composite manufacturing company serving the aerospace, Department of Defense, and recreational industry. We manufacture with fiberglass, carbon fiber, and you know, the question is, what type of success did we see in the summer? Well, it was a late summer, if you will, for us, as all the outfitters and dealers waited until about mid-July to do anything, as no one knew what was going to happen. As Ryan mentioned, everyone went outside, so some of that success came from everyone flooding the outdoors. But for us, we changed our direction a little bit, where we went more direct sell to the consumer and ramped up our social media and our website a little bit before that. So we got a little lucky, but the success that we really see now is from that Shop in Utah grant. To talk a little bit about the grant, as everyone knows, when you see a grant, it's kind of a long, drawn out, or can be a long, drawn out process. The Shop in Utah grant was quite simple to apply for, and we were hesitant. We still did it. We moved forward. You know, you never know. We received the approval. Then once the check came, we went to work. We offered unprecedented sales on some of our product lines that our dealers weren't carrying, so we went undercut the dealer. And with the allotted amount of money that we had set aside, we weren't even sure how far that would go. We were thinking maybe in December we were going to have to offer major discounts to use up the funding. But there are two product lines that we used it for. One was for the bike industry. And if you've been to a bike shop recently, their inventories are quite low. So they've been hit hard for stock inventory. Well, that we used up those funds in 3.5 days, and we had to end the sale. So that was a great success for us. And now the challenge is getting all that product out the door that we're dealing with now. And on Cataract Oars, which we manufacture oars for drift boats, whitewater rafting, and kayak paddles, the lines that we offered to sell there, it took about 1.5 weeks, and the funds were used up. And again, we are now dealing with how to get all of that out the door. But a great success for the state of Utah to give us that opportunity to run the sale, which when we did a deeper discount sale than we normally would do. So thank you to the Shop in Utah grant.
Thanks, Jake. Kate, can you tell us about the grants that you received and maybe how that helped your operation?
Sure. So the PPP funding helped us keep staff in the office to prepare for a difference in programming over the summer. And and the Office of Child Care grant helped us run our summer camp programs at a very low cost. Moab is a small town that is mostly on a tourism economy. So a lot of our town is a service industry, and so families can't afford programming. So the Office of Child Care grant really helped us do our summer camps. But now that summer is over and we're looking forward, schools had trouble with reopening, as probably anybody who's a part of this group has heard on their news about what local schools are going through. And so for us, that's our main clientele. So of course our fall season is closed. So for schools, they are unable to participate in coming to Moab for outdoor education programs. So, looking ahead for us, we needed financial support now to make us ready for next spring, when schools hopefully have endured their opening and are able to prepare for a field trip. So the Shop in Utah grant has been clutch. We weren't really sure if it was going to work, if schools were even going to be able to entertain a field trip come spring. But So, but we took the risk and we applied for the funds. 50% of the funds can support you now, are basically unrestricted funds, and 50% needs to be a promotion. So for us, it was very helpful in keeping our staff on now to be able to prepare for the spring, and also giving a discount to schools who are already struggling, to be able to allow their kids to go on a field trip in the spring. So what we did is we chose schools that we know we have a good relationship with, who have come to programs with us that we were afraid maybe wouldn't be able to afford a program in the spring, and offered them 50% off their program fees after a deposit is received, to sign on to do a program for the spring. So that we need to have a signed contract and a deposit received by the end of the year, December 30th. And we reached out to maybe half dozen to a dozen schools, and all of the funds we offered have now been dedicated to a school. So we have schools signed on, which means that they have endured the reopening process, and they are looking forward to ways to get their kids outside, learning together, experiencing together. And we really couldn't have done that without the Shop in Utah. And it's almost a sign of what schools need. We couldn't have done it without Shop in Utah. So it's a really wonderful grant, and we're so grateful.
And I'm glad you guys were able to take advantage of all the support and different grant programs, because I think it made a lot of difference for a lot of operations. I want to pivot a little bit and look to Lee and Jesus and get some pro tips here on what made, or what I guess, what changes to your operation this summer. Obviously there were a lot, but what do you think were kind of the key 3 factors of the success of your programs, and what did you learn from it all this summer? Kind of what are your takeaways?
Do you want to take that one, Jesus? You were the one in the thick of it, mate. So
sounds good. So 3 pro tips. First one, I would say, like, being consistent throughout. If you come up with a plan, and especially with the whole COVID situation, me and my leadership team had to sit down for several days just thinking and rethinking and reevaluating what the summer was going to look like, and how we were going to hold our staff and our kids to that standard, and how not to drop those standards as the summer goes by. On a traditional summer, we will tend to be like a bit more flexible and a bit more adaptive when it comes to certain policies, certain things, program related. But this time with COVID, when it came to cleanliness, when it came to maintaining social distancing and not mingling between the groups, like, we had to be extremely consistent. We cannot take any risks with any of those children or staff. So I would say consistency was definitely a big part of it. Second, I would say being intentional about the things that we're doing. Of course, our program looked way different from what we've traditionally done, but we're intentional about the experience that we're providing for the kids. Every single thing that we stopped doing, we sort of replaced it with something new, something exciting for the kids to try, and kids ended up loving this new program. And that's one of the biggest outcomes from this COVID summer. We have a ton of ideas that we can implement for years to come, and all of that just happened within 7 weeks of program. So definitely being intentional about it. And third one, just I don't know, if I were to speak to a young summer camp professional like myself, I would just tell them to be creative and be a camp professional. Pretty sure Kate can relate to this. We have to be extremely creative. We need to be quick on our feet. Things do not go according to the plan at any summer camp that I've ever been to, and you just got to be ready for it. So COVID summers, if there are any more to come, knock on wood, hopefully not, they're going to be changing. They're going to be changing by the hour, by the day. So you just need to be ready to come up with new ideas and still be intentional and consistent with the expectations that you set. I would definitely say those were the top 3 things that helped us, throughout the summer, all the way from the 2 weeks of staff training to the 7 weeks of program. Definitely the key to success from my perspective.
Yeah, if it's all right, if I can kind of jump in there, but depending on the level of like where you are in the totem pole of your organization, like from my perspective, not on that ground level, but in that prep level. So when we made the decision and we're going forward, you have to, like Jesus said, be intentional about going forward, right? If you're holding a gripe of this doesn't feel right, this like I don't agree with this. Like I had some very heated discussions with our CEO around this, but it never went to a bad place. It was always, very, very constructive. And then once that decision was made, we incorporated our board, who are some very high level professionals. And once that document came out from ACA in conjunction with their consulting firm, that's my other big takeaway. You have to network in this industry. You need to utilize those networks. We're lucky that we've got an international organization behind us. And so every week we were meeting with camp directors from across the country, right? And these are some fantastic minds, and they're all right. So how are you going to clean the horses' saddles? Like, is archery going to happen? How are you going to do that? Climbing, like, because everything was about disinfecting. And so that document came out, and they were very vigilant in what they put into that. And so, again, you have to be intentional about breaking that down and making it relevant for your operation. Because it's very wordy, it's very repeaty. And so, it's just drumming on the same message. Wash your hands, disinfect after whatever you do. And so when Jesus talks about the creativity, so when we did our own sleep outs, which we haven't done in a long time. And what we did, we got the kids to make their own shelters out of tarps. Huge success, right? Like we already do camp cookouts for breakfast and dinner, incorporate with that. We also did a very gutsy move. We decided to bring a Bold and Gold program, which is a national YMCA program for boys outdoor leadership and girls outdoor leadership development. And because we had the caliber of staff on hand, they just knocked it out of the park and set the foundation for where we're transitioning to. And so like this summit series was huge for us, connecting with our local providers from around the area. And then the third thing is, support your team. Like to give you some perspective of what Jesus went through this summer. He hired a Florida man to be the kitchen, and it didn't work out. And so from, I think, the second or third session, Jesus was not only a camp director, he was the catering director, creating 3 meals for all of those kids with his, like I had to do shuttle runs to like get rid of the recycling and all that kind of thing because it just took that off him, like just constantly being there for your staff is so critical, like observing Jesus and our other directors. So Catherine Peel at Mill Hollow, and our coordinator, we had a couple of coordinators that like, they just did such a great job of being there for their team emotionally. And so, like I have to be there to support them because if they don't have their necessary outlet, it all gets piled on, and that on top of, are we going to get shut down? What's the ramifications? Like, what's that? Like, are we going to be that Atlanta YMCA camp that, went through the headlines? Like all of these things are constantly going through. And so, but through that, I think is what galvanized us, right? Whenever I talk to other camp directors that had the same success as what we did, it was, like it was resiliency, right? Like you can't have resiliency without hope. And so as you progress through the summer and that hope continued to develop, like that just builds confidence, right? And that reflects onto the kids, right? And so while we can't maintain that throughout the year and be that touch point, we were that like, slice of hope in this really crappy year. But it, the weird thing too is it just really got me to appreciate the small things. So when we have a big thing like that, it was like, wow. I put it like I think we just did a miracle, like I'm not a religious man, but you know, the last couple of weeks, like we were sitting around talking, and we were like, yeah, we feel like we got some guardian angels right now. Like, this is crazy. Like, this feels wild. So yeah.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks, Jesus. It's interesting to, you know, hear you mention, you know, the greater good and the, you know, kind of all hands on deck to make sure things are happening and kind of the things that fall into place with doing that. Along those lines, Ryan and Jake, maybe you can speak to this. Maybe Ryan, start. You know, when, you know, how do you handle you know, growing business? You know, you guys, Camp Chef specifically, having an influx in sales and orders and things at the same time that they're saying nobody can go into the office and work. You know, and obviously you've got to ship, take orders, still market, do what you need to do to run your business. You know, how do you do that? How do you manage that? And you know, maybe what were some of the changes to operations that were made that you think you'll carry forward because it made the business better?
Yeah, good question. You know, for us, we've always kind of been a flexible business, been able to adapt to the market. You know, nobody could see this coming, obviously, but we were quick to adapt and able to do it. So, you know, they made a quick decision. Hey, everybody work from home. Everybody possible, you know, there's a few jobs that couldn't, but that basically cleared out the office for the far majority, that, you know, most employees were able to immediately work from home, because of, obviously, for things like this and technology. So interesting, in some ways it made us more efficient, you know, but obviously the personal connection was missing in other areas. You know, and then obviously through our warehouse, they immediately put in different guidelines or restrictions and things. You know, we have several different warehouses. So, you know, they made sure that warehouse 1 didn't go to warehouse 2, 2 didn't go to 3. So that way, if there was a breakout within one warehouse, you know, we kind of kept all those separate. And that was good, a good way to handle it. You know, the other thing, you know, there was a big increase in demand, which meant more shipping. So our shipping department was just absolutely slammed. And so, you know, we needed people quick. You know, we went through different temp agencies or whatever to help. But office employees jumped in to help. People from every department, every level of the company was in the warehouse through spring into summer, and actually even now we're kind of still seeing some of that. You know, and obviously the people who'd go into the warehouse would follow those guidelines. But I think overall for Camp Chef, one of the biggest things that helped us be successful, yes, it was obviously the changes that we saw during all of this, but prior to, you know, we were hedging bets on our inventory levels before any of this happened. We were going into our peak season, so we were as prepared as we could with inventory. Didn't solve the issue, but it helped. The other big thing, I think, is our relationships with all of our key stakeholders in the company, not just within the team of Camp Chef itself, but our relationships within the supply chain, our relationships with our ambassadors, with our dealer base, with our shipping companies. All of those were key because tough conversations needed to be had. You know, people on our team had to have those hard conversations, but if you didn't have a strong relationship going into this pandemic, it's a lot more difficult to get done what you need to have done. And so that was an interesting find that I saw, for sure, that we had during all of this. You know, and then obviously, similar to what Jake said, we hedged our bets on some of the social media stuff that we did. We did a lot more Facebook Lives, a lot more digital things to reach our audience. You know, we had to cancel some promotions because demand was higher. But overall, we were able to be flexible and figure it out. And we're still doing that. We're still seeing a lot of this as we come into the fall season, and, you know, we'll see what happens during the holiday season. But from what we're seeing, this has been a big increase across the board, and across the industry itself. you know, a lot of my industry friends, I see Kenji. Well, I don't know if he's still on here. I'm sure he's seeing similar things to some friends in the industry.
Thanks, Ryan. Jake, how about you? I know you or ACI was working kind of on a plan to go more direct at the beginning of the year. Maybe this accelerated it, or you know, what came of the operational changes for you guys through this whole thing?
Well, we were deemed, well, a couple of things. We were deemed an essential business with our Department of Defense contracts. So we maintained, but we haven't had anyone working remotely since this started. We've put in a lot of measures in the manufacturing plant to physically distance. It almost feels like you don't even talk to anybody anymore, even though they're right next door in an office. Physically, it's quite weird. But we put in a lot of measures to keep manufacturing because everything is made here. However, a lot of employees did stay home, away. So that was a very unique challenge. And it's good to hear from Ryan, where we're basically in the same boat there, shifting everyone around. Yeah, as far as going more direct, we brought in a really good team to ramp up our social media, our website content, and that's given us a lot more web traffic. And a lot of the trade shows, pretty much all of them were canceled. So this gave us a little bit of an outlet to connect to the end user. We put out an initial email blast before we did our sell for the Shop in Utah grant to give everyone a heads up. And then once it hit, it went gangbusters. So, we engaged a lot more in the public square. And this gave us a new outlet to share new content, share new information to our customers. And yes, we're still, it's really good to hear Ryan say these things like, yeah, we're still trying to figure everything out. We have a weekly COVID meeting, and we go over everything. Is there anything more that we need to present? What do the numbers look like? So this is a regular discussion, and we have a weekly newsletter, a COVID newsletter, if there are any changes that we need to make throughout the company.
So it obviously, for all of your operations, doesn't sound like it's over by any means. We're still trying to figure out what it looks like now moving forward, whether that's for the industry side of things going into, holiday sales and normally a time when, revenues are up and it's kind of crunch time for a lot of companies that are producing a product in the outdoor space, to these summer programs and operations, right? Like how do we prepare for 2021, knowing very little about what 2021 is going to look like moving forward? Still, we're not quite sure, what's going to be different next year, next spring, and things, if anything will be different yet. So we have it open for questions and answers. So why don't we just go round robin one more time and everybody say, their one pro tip to their peers here on this call. What should you do to prepare for 2021 or fall of 2020 and Christmas time? What would you say is what would you share if you had to share your wisdom with this group? Lee, Jesus, why don't you guys start?
Being the optimist, we are planning on being back to the new normal, and that might be a little bit too optimistic, but we're going back to our what we originally budgeted for this year, and so that's depending on how people feel about vaccines and things, once that gets rolled out, that's going to be an interesting, who's going to take it, who's not. Does that mean inclusiveness for them versus not? There's going to be all of that great rabbit hole to dive into. But do what you got to do, right? like we were super lucky, but you know, like the reality is, you know, the cost of operating the summer was huge, right? Like while we had this huge output and while we had these funds, right, we're not out of the woods yet. And you know, like there's a whole lot of beautiful things happening within the industry. ACA is capturing a lot of the data right now. So, you know, whatever you did, right? Like the other big message to all of you is whether you ran or not, just support one another, right? Like there's a couple of Facebook groups that have really polarizing opinions, and the moderators of the pages did a really good job, you know, but, you know, if you feel strongly that, you know, that it was negligent to run, like that's your opinion, but I mean, if you weren't there, you don't know the magic that happened. You know, and we've even seen, you know, when people are posting, yeah, X amount of participants, people still saying, I have a problem with saying no in cases. You can't confirm that you didn't have COVID. Absolutely. But what we do know is that we had a bunch of scares and they all got tested and it all came back negative. So just like, I'm a huge advocate for this industry as a whole. So let's advocate for each other, right? Whether you did virtual, whether you did camp in a box, or whether you ran in person, it's all successes, man. You were doing what you could for the benefit of our youth. And that, for me, is the biggest priority.
Yeah, and kind of like going, you know, with what Lee said about supporting each other, it is going to be worth it. Once again, what Kate said before, just seeing the families, seeing the kids being so grateful for what we did, go for it. You know, take the chance. Feel you got to be as prepared as you can. With COVID, things are going to change. You know, as I said before, by the hour, by the day. So you just got to be as ready as you can. Have several backup plans, but once again, be intentional and do it for the kids. Right? When we were running camp, of course, me and my team were absolutely scared of what's going to happen. Like our names are going to be linked to a potential outbreak, you know. But we were there doing it for the kids. We wanted to have those kids in a space that they will be free to, you know, interact in a certain way with one another, and it paid off. So, you know, think of that mission, think of that basis of camp. You know, this is what we do, and this is what we want to provide the kids and families with. And also, if we're, you know, looking forward to next summer, next year, definitely what Lee said, you know, being extremely optimistic. But I would also suggest, you know, like whatever worked this summer, it might work better next year when things are in a different shape, when people are way more informed, when science has advanced and come up with X, Y, and Z solutions for the COVID pandemic. If it worked this summer, it might as well work next year. So definitely like implement and refine and perfect those things that we kind of like came up with on the fly almost this summer. That will definitely be a key to success next year for sure.
Thanks. Kate, how about you? You are just kind of getting into the thick of it with school being back in session and your programs being run through school, you know, through school systems, or in conjunction with school systems. So, you know, what's your pro tip moving forward now over the next few months?
I guess in addition to what Lee and Jesus have said, really just stay true to why you're doing what you're doing. You know, I think we all can relate that the outdoors are important to everyone of all ages. And whether you're providing a product that helps someone engage with the outdoors safely, or whether you are, you know, providing the transportation and the guidance for a program, we just need to remember that the outdoors make us feel better and make us feel alive. And if you keep that in mind, and it will help you through the tough times. And I think I've heard other people say too, you know, it is hard, acknowledging that it's hard. The uncertainty is hard. And each of us deal with it differently on different days. And so if you're a part of a strong team, divvy up duties, divvy up tasks, you know, stay true to why you're doing the things you're doing, and be there for your team, because everyone has their moments of frustration, and without supporting each other through that, those frustration points will pass and you will move on. So I guess that's my words of advice.
Thanks, Kate. And then from a business standpoint, Ryan and Jake, in that order, what's your tip for anybody from a product business, moving forward towards holiday sales, and then, I guess reforecasting for 2021, what that might look like?
Yeah. A few tips. I think number one tip, I've got a few. Number one, I would say always maintain good relationships, because that's just so important to get through these hard times. So it's important to have them going into these situations. So have a good team, and maintain that team, not just within your organization, but any stakeholders close by that. Number two, life's going to throw punches at you. Just be ready to take them. And, I think we've heard that across the board. Everybody on here did some great things to adapt, and just be ready. What's going to happen in 2021? What are we going to do? If there's one thing I've learned this year, it's that I don't know. Nothing is set in stone. Everybody's plans completely changed. Our situation is not unique, because everybody's going through this. We're all going through this together. So just be ready to take any punches that life throws at you. You don't know what they're going to be, but as soon as that happens, as soon as something hits, adapt, change, figure it out. And, I agree with Lee and Jesus, stay optimistic to do that. And, I think those are the two big things that I would say.
For that's funny, Ryan, when you were going to say what's our tip for 2021, I was like, wow, they really know what's going on. So it's good to hear you say, I don't know, because we don't know. We're still just trying to get through this year. We still have a lot of dealers, customers, when's this going to ship? And we're still dealing with employees who aren't here due to COVID. So that really affects the line, the product line. But one thing, and this has probably been mentioned, is we had an awesome business plan going into 2020. I was so proud of it. We had all the charts and numbers, graphs. It looked great on paper. We had a great social media plan, calendared for the year. Everything looked awesome. And here we go. Obviously, that all changed. So be flexible and roll with it is what we've had to do. I think that at this point in time, there wasn't much risk in a lot of things, just going for it. And we learned a lot. We made some mistakes as well. We didn't just do everything and we had a success. We had a lot of mistakes moving along, and we've learned from that. But it's been we'll probably have a record year with our product lines. And I want to attribute that, like Kate said, the outdoors is a great place to be. And it is great to see so many people outside doing what they love. And let's keep it up. So let's keep up getting everyone outside, and everyone will be happier.
Thanks, everybody. And here are my pro tips. Being a father of 3 kids and a lover of whitewater river trips and being outside, my pro tips are: get your kids into fantastic programs like the Canyons Field Institute or the YMCA. Sign them up, get them outside, let them enjoy nature, and get relief from, the stresses of what school is these days and kind of what life is about. Get them outside, give them to feel that power of nature and recreation, and support these organizations in any way that you can, whether that's volunteer, whether that's signing your kids up for it, or getting the whole neighborhood to get into a program, or whatever it is. And then on top of that, everybody take a river trip. Go get some oars from Jake, buy a sweet camp kitchen setup from Ryan, and take a river trip. It will change your life, and it will give you all kinds of relief from whatever 2020 has been, and we'll all come out of it successful and smiling. I guarantee it. So those are my pro tips for what to do in the next few months, and hopefully you can all take advantage of that. I want to thank all the panelists today. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for everybody that joined us. Again, this is recorded. Please feel free to share it around and help spread the word of the great things that are happening around our state and with our great companies and organizations here that support outdoor recreation. So thanks again for everybody for joining us. Feel free to reach out to any of the people on this panel or reach out to our office if you need to be connected with one of them. We're happy to make those connections and answer any questions further for anybody that's interested. So with that, everybody have a fantastic day and rest of your week, and hope to see you outside. Thank you.
Thank you.